Equinoxe. Now you can also see radio. Equinoxe.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us on this edition of the program You and Your Health aired on Equinoxe Radio Multimedia. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. Have you ever heard about dyslexia? If no, then today will be an opportunity for you to learn something new. According to research, 1 out of 5 students are suffering with dyslexia, but the problem now is teachers and parents are finding it hard to manage this condition. Today's program will teach you on how to manage children suffering from such a condition. Let's go on this short break. I will be right back. Welcome back. With me here in the studio is a nurse. She's called Berinu Irene. This is a pleasure having you on the program. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Immaculate. Thank you so much for having me here on set.
You're welcome. Today we are going to be talking about dyslexia, and I guess lots of people have never heard about the word dyslexia. What does it mean to be dyslexic?
Okay, thank you once more, Immaculate. Dyslexia, before I delve into the meaning of dyslexia, I want us to understand how and when dyslexia originated. And it originated more than a century ago with a certain German ophthalmologist, Rudolf Berlin. This guy had certain clients who complained of difficulties in reading and writing. And after a lot of examination, after a lot of cross-examination, he discovered that their problems were neurological in origin, and he coined the word blindness, and that was how the word originated. And some years after that, dyslexia was an article was published on it by a British journal, and as at that time, parents of children suffering from dyslexia, they advocated or they campaigned for a better treatment. So now let's understand what dyslexia is all about. Dyslexia, according to World Health Organization, is a specific learning disorder which is neurobiological in origin. It is characterized by difficulties in reading, in writing, in spelling, and its symptoms, they range from mild to severe. Dyslexia presents itself in many forms. It has many types, but the 6 major types I'm going to mention here are: you have phonological dyslexia, which has to do with breaking language or speech into individual words. You have visual dyslexia. Here the brain is unable to accept what they see in writing. You have surface dyslexia. Here the individual is unable to process the language easily. You have primary dyslexia. This one has to do with parents handing dyslexic genes to their children. You have secondary dyslexia, which is developmental. In fact, primary and secondary dyslexia, they are developmental in nature. The unborn babies, they develop some neurological problems, and as such, they acquire dyslexia. You equally have trauma dyslexia. Here, this one is acquired, wherein the brain receives some trauma of some sort. So these are the types of different types of dyslexia, and dyslexia is caused by, there are several factors that cause dyslexia. I would like us to delve a little bit scientifically to understand why dyslexia, why some things cause dyslexia. You have looking at the brain of a human being, you have 3 main parts of the brain. You have the cerebrum, you have the cerebellum, and you have the brainstem. The cerebrum is a big wrinkled part of the brain, which is divided into the left and right hemisphere, and this hemisphere, they are each divided into 4 lobes. You equally have in the four lobes, you have the left frontal lobe, which is made up of small areas such as the bronchus area and the Wernicke's area. The bronchus area, dyslexics, they apply that area when reading, and sometimes they move on to the right hemisphere, which is not proper, which is not appropriate for reading, which causes them to be slow in reading. Now you have the cerebellum, which is located at the back of the head, and it has to do with the posture, the maintenance of the individual, and this is slightly linked to reading. It is equally worth noting that the cerebellum is distinctly related to reading. Now we have also the brainstem, which this one is connected to the spinal cord. This one has nothing to do, which is another major part of the brain. It has nothing to do with reading. So these are things that we need to understand before we really delve into the causes of dyslexia. One major cause of dyslexia is genetics, as in parents hand over genetic genes onto their children. If you have parents who are dyslexic, or some relatives who are dyslexic, one or more of the children by such parents are likely to have dyslexia. You equally have hearing problems at a young age. That's a cause of dyslexia as well. You have evolutionary perspective. It depends on the area an individual comes from, which those are things that can easily spark up dyslexia in children.
You just talked about hereditary. So in cases where, let's say, we have two very intelligent parents,
Yes.
is there a slight probability that any of their kids can suffer from dyslexia?
Very, very well, because dyslexia doesn't just affect slow learners, it affects intelligent people as well. It affects average IQ persons as well. So parents who are intelligent could be dyslexic, and they could pass on the genes to their children. We have examples even in history, and even presently. You have the great physicist Albert Einstein. He was dyslexic. He was extremely good at maths, but he couldn't read properly, he couldn't write properly. So those are
Let's now come to a Cameroonian context.
Okay.
How common is dyslexia in Cameroon?
To a greater extent, dyslexia isn't common in Cameroon. And why do I say so? The layman out there, which makes up a greater part of the population, is oblivious to this disorder, to this learning disorder, because I personally did some research going out from school to school, primary schools and stuff. I realized from the questions I posed to the educators and to the parents out there, they are like, dyslexia, isn't it related to a child who doesn't want to learn, a child who is lazy, a child who is slow, forgetting the fact that dyslexia, the children, it's no fault of theirs. In fact, the children having dyslexia, they have to work twice as hard to meet up with their peers, and it is suggested that 1 in every 5 child is dyslexic. So to a greater extent, in our Cameroonian milieu, we are not really exposed to this dyslexia. And most educators, you have the pedagogists, educators who have been trained, maybe government school teachers and stuff like that, they have an aware of dyslexia. Why? Because we have this setup, inclusion of education, which was actually introduced in Cameroon in 1842. This setup helps children with special needs to blend, to incorporate, to spend most of the time or all of their day with those with non-special needs. And it has been, it's one of the things that it's slow. It is slow, but it is steady. It brings about a steady recognition of the plight of the children encountering special needs problems. So to a greater extent, our Cameroonian context, our population out there, they are not yet aware of this learning disorder, dyslexia.
If you're just joining us on the program, then know we are talking about dyslexia, which is a learning condition or a disability that some children face. And to participate in the program, our technician will soon be displaying the numbers which you can call and ask your questions. To participate, you can call the numbers 655-511111 or 652-025050. I repeat, 652-025050. Back to you, nurse. So, in case an individual has dyslexia, can that individual be able to read?
Yes, very good question. Thank you so much, Immaculate. That individual is able to read. It's going to be it may be a slow and laborious process, painstaking actually, but it can be actualized, because the individual has to pass through a series of process, a series of approaches, a series of methods in order to help. And this is going to be employed by educators, by the parents, by the society at large. Methods such as individualized special education, you have rehabilitation, you have occupational therapy, you have work from psychologists and all that. They could help the individual in order to read, especially parents. For children, they play a key role, because they need to help the children to read, they need to help the children to study, they need to employ multisensory approaches to help these children to be able to read. It's very possible for an individual with dyslexia to be able to read.
We have a call we just lost that caller. So back to you, Dr. Nurse.
Yes,
so
please.
Now, what are some of the early signs? How can I see a child and just know this child is suffering from dyslexia?
Okay, a very good question. Thank you so much, Immaculate. Symptoms of dyslexia, they vary from child to child. No two child or children, they have the same symptoms, and you could observe such symptoms right from their kindergarten age, maybe from 5 to 6 years old. You begin to notice certain things, like, for example, some children are slow in talking. They're not able to articulate their words well, and you could realize that such a problem goes on even into their late primary school. You see a child 10, 11 years, that child is still unable to articulate certain words well. You have some children, their handwriting is, their pen or pencil grip is unusually large or small, making their handwriting messy. That's another sign and symptom of dyslexia. You have in some children, they are unable to perform certain functions. For example, asking a dyslexic child to go clean up their room, it's going to take forever for such a dyslexic child, whereas to the regular child, they will easily clean up their room in no time. You usually have poor writing. Some children, poor learning, sorry. Some children are unable to decode certain language codes. You have motor problems with motor coordination. There are some children, they are unable to distinguish between their left from their right, inside, outside, front, back. You ask them to start matching, they start with their right, which is really a problem. You could diagnose that child may be dyslexic. You have some children, they are unnecessarily quiet. Some are bullies, even in class. Some are really untidy. Such children, you should really find out to see what is going on. Such children could be dyslexic. So there are the symptoms, like I said earlier on, they vary. They range from mild to severe, and they vary from child to child. Those are little signs that you could notice that the child is dyslexic.
And with such a condition, can a dyslexic person be successful in life?
Another excellent question, Immaculate. Yes, very, very successful. Many dyslexics, dyslexia does not affect just slow learners alone. It affects intelligent people. It affects average IQ persons. It affects slow learners as well. But you are from statistics and from research, it has been seen that a lot of people have succeeded even with dyslexia.
We have a call on the line. Hello.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Madam Mirabel in Bepanda.
Okay.
I have a son that was sick in his childhood. I delivered him. He had this sickness that they told us in the hospital that is twisting. The sickness is twisting. So this child is 22 years, but he's still in Form 5, and he has written GCE for 5 years. And this child is like that. When he learns, he cannot recall what he has learned. So I don't know if there's treatment or there's anything that I can follow up with the child.
Okay, we are going to answer that question in a short while, madam. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you very much.
I guess you got that question.
Yes, I did. I got part of the question, but what I got from the question is that her child has an issue and is not able to retain certain
what he reads.
Yeah. Yes, there is remedy for such children. Like I mentioned earlier on, there are therapies that the child or the person needs to go through. You have individualized special education. You have the approaches. There's one they call Otto Gillingham approach, which helps the child to be able to understand phonemes, the basics, that's understand sounds, word building and all that. You have rehabilitation. There are some centers out there that are out to help dyslexic children. You have seminars that people need to attend, seminars that are coming up that people need to attend in order to make themselves knowledgeable concerning this disorder. You have you have psychotherapists, you have psychologists who are out there. There are many of them out there that can help the child in order to achieve success.
So now, we have another call on the line. Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yes, sir, we are getting you.
One talk from emission for Chile.
Yeah, we are getting you online. You're live.
Okay, I have some book for speaking to make up my standing.
We are finding it hard to get you. Can you please? We are sorry, we will not have that caller. We have another call on the line. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, madam.
Your name, where you're calling from, and your question.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
This is Tony.
Dr. Tony, yeah. You're welcome,
Yes.
Dr. Tony. That's
I'm a psycho-naturopath.
okay.
Yes, there is. Yeah, there is a woman who was just concerned about a child that is unable to have a good retentive memory.
Yeah.
Another method which we could use, doctor, as I say, is to go through a diet system therapy. That can detoxify the child and heal the child's fat and heal everything about the child. And you find the child performing extremely very well. So for anything that you deal with any patient or what kind of disability, please, diet system is very important. I mean using diet to handle certain complications is so important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Tony. I guess you didn't get what he was saying.
No, I didn't.
He was saying people who are suffering from dyslexia, they can equally take in their diet has a very important role to play. Is that true?
Yes, very true. They need to. Some of them are deficient in vitamin B12. Some they need to take in a lot of vitamins. They need to take in a lot of supplements as well to help them.
So apart from dyslexia, what are some other learning disabilities children can suffer from?
Okay, there are some other learning disabilities like dyscalculia. Dyscalculia has to do with difficulties in solving maths. Some children find it really, while some are unable to read. Others are some are unable to read, like maybe a lesson and whatever, but some of them are unable to solve mathematical problems. You have dyspraxia. This one is caused by problems with movements and coordination, and language and speech as well. You equally have dysgraphia. This one has to do with children who have handwriting problems. They have extremely messy handwriting. So those are you have a attention deficit hyperactivity disorder as well. These ones, the children are they are just so unsteady. They are hyperactive and stuff. Those are other disorders that are associated to dyslexia as well.
So just briefly tell us, how can dyslexia be treated?
Okay, dyslexia, it could be a lifelong problem. Dyslexia can be treated if handled properly, maybe from a very tender age. It can either be eradicated or it could last for a whole lifetime. Like I said, there are approaches that you need to employ in order to help, and these approaches are carried out by health professionals, not just the parents or the parents and the educators and the society at large. They have their part to play per se. So you have approaches such as rehabilitations, like I mentioned. You have therapy, you have educational therapies, individualized therapy. You have psychologists that can equally play a part in the life to help the dyslexic child, and those are things that can.
We have a call on the line. Mm-hmm. Hello.
Hello, good morning, madam.
Good morning, madam.
Hello, good morning, madam.
Yes, can you turn off your receiver and you ask your question?
Yes, Madam Rashid, I'm calling from Kumba.
Okay. Yes, Madam Rashida, go ahead with your question.
Yes, madam, I want to ask a question. So, I always have this nose bleeding. I don't know the cause.
Today we are talking about dyslexia. I think when we have another doctor, you have the opportunity to ask that question. But I think, can you help her with some causes of nose bleeding in case you can just...
She says nose bleeding, right?
Yeah.
She needs to first of all go to the hospital, yes,
okay,
to really find out what has triggered the nose bleeding, because you could talk about an underlying cause, whereas it is actually something else. It could be a severe problem, or it could be something mild, but she needs to find the root cause of what ails her.
Before we end this program, you will be holding a seminar to train people on how to manage dyslexic people.
Yes.
So tell us, what is it all about?
Oh, the seminar it's about dyslexia. Actually, the theme for the seminar is knowledge and practices of parents of children suffering from dyslexia, and it's going to be holding in Bonaberry on the 18th. That's a few days next tomorrow, actually, in Bonaberry at Cassian Hotel. And we are going to be helping. We are inviting experts, a neurologist in the field who is going to come from Hopital Central, Yaoundé, and some other places, and another doctor as well. They are going to help our participants to diagnose how to diagnose children living with dyslexia, how to help children living with dyslexia, how to manage the condition, and how to help the children lead successful lives. And a lot of things are going to be put in place, because so many parents out there, they insult their children, even educators, the society at large, they insult their children, they castigate their children and all that, and it causes these children to develop low self-esteem and depression eventually, and most of these children become school dropouts.
Thank you so much. We have finally come to the end of the program, and that was Nurse Berinui Irene that we have as guest for today. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogoyan. For technical assistance, that was done by Raphael Dipanda. Stay blessed in the company of more programs